Thank you for tuning in. This is what will be episode 2, 1.5, I'm not sure, of the Bad Guy podcast. It's really just being done on a whim because today is a difficult kind of day. Like me and Alex mentioned in the last episode, I'm like as pro-black as they come. So today, which is Wednesday, September 23rd, the Louisville Police Department announced that they won't be charging any of the officers that were involved in the shooting of Breonna Taylor. They won't be charging them with anything serious for the most part. They're going to charge Officer Brett Hankinson with endangerment. And I know a lot of people don't really get into political jargon or police, terms or whatever you want to call it. But endangerment, the charge that they're giving him, they're basically holding him accountable for firing his weapon in a public place where it could have hurt somebody else. So they're not holding him accountable for shooting or even firing at Breonna Taylor. They're just saying, oh, well, you shot at your target and you shouldn't have done it in the manner that you did it. But they're not saying that he shouldn't have done it. That is the ultimate problem here. And there's so many underlying problems that go into it, but the big picture, the main one that I see is that we're wrong, we're mad at the wrong things. Every major sports outlet, all the celebrities, whoever you want to call it, everybody's had the t-shirts, the hats, the slogans, the hashtags, arrest the cops. They've made it a little thing on TikTok, arrest the cops who killed Breonna Taylor. It sounds great, but for the people who really understand the ins and outs of the laws that our police follow, we know that was never even an option. That was never going to happen. And the reason that was never going to happen is because what they did by their laws was perfectly legal. And any public defender, somebody who went to law school for a day, or just someone who watched Law and Order for a couple hours could win that case in court, that they were never going to be convicted because they passed the law after the fact to outlaw the no-knock warrants. But what they did, they showed up to her apartment, her and her boyfriend's apartment, because of the no-knock warrant, without any type of warning. They barged in. To you and me, who sleep in our beds every night, that's a home invasion. They're in plain clothes, they never announce themselves, and they come in with their guns out. That's a home invasion to you and I. But to the police, that's called a warrant. Do with whatever you want with the discrepancies, but that's just the cards we was dealt. So they go in there, again, dealing with a home invasion. If you're armed, which is perfectly legal in Kentucky, you're going to stand your ground. You're going to shoot back, or you're going to shoot at someone who's invading your home. The little narrative that they pushed was that her boyfriend was the first one to shoot, which that's not even the truth either. He also didn't shoot any of the police officers. The bullet that did hit the police officer came from another officer's gun, but that's neither here nor there. The whole point behind it is that they were within their rights as a police officer under their police union to go to her apartment and murder her in cold blood in her sleep. And that is the problem. It's not that the fact that it happened, it's the fact that it was legal. So everybody who wants to arrest the blah, 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 yeah, common sense would tell us arrest the cops that killed Breonna Taylor. But unfortunately, our lawmakers and governors and whatever you want to call them don't have common sense. And the conservatives who follow them also do not have common sense. Because they have somehow tried to paint her and her boyfriend as the villains in this situation, which I really don't get. And it blows my mind because the things that they were saying right after she was murdered, like, oh, they had the wrong apartment, blah, blah, blah. My mind immediately, I didn't even get to think about what happened in the situation because my first thought was, okay, they had the wrong apartment. But what was going to happen if they had the right apartment? Let's say whoever they was looking for was in there. Do you still go in there and blow that man away in his sleep? or woman, whoever they were looking for, what are the intentions? And the thing that why I say we're mad at the wrong issue is because had it been the right apartment, this would not be a case. This would not be a story. It would have just been a successful warrant carried out. All them dudes would have got pat on the back when they went back to their precinct. You know, their police chief would have bought them donuts and whatever cops do. But that's the problem. That's the real problem, is that what they did was perfectly legal. They just made a mistake. And because they made a mistake while doing their job, they're protected under their unions. And it's so crazy that Black people are not even asking for much. At this point, in 2020, there's not 1965, but in 2020, we are asking the police and our governmental leaders, we're not even asking to end police brutality anymore. We've just completely accepted that they're gonna beat the shit out of us when they catch us. If you're the one that gets caught today. And you know, that's just how it's gonna be at this point, I guess. We're not even asking for them to stop that. All we're asking is that you stop murdering us. Like, it doesn't matter if I robbed a convenience store. It doesn't matter if I did go in an abandoned home. It doesn't matter if I did shoot somebody else. It's not the police's job, if I'm unarmed and I'm not a threat, to shoot me. You are not the judge, jury, and executioner. But that's what they've become. And they took that and ran with it. Because at this point, y'all are shooting innocent people. And the fact that there even is a counter argument to that is mind-blowing to me. I don't even understand how you can justify it. And that's why I have no respect for anybody on the other side of these arguments. And even the police officers, I get it's your job, like the ones who aren't directly involved with it. But if you're gonna stand up there and clash, I was watching at work today, I'm watching CNN and Fox News. I like to be fair. I like to see both sides of who's saying what. I'm watching CNN and they're saying police clash with protesters over the news behind Breonna Taylor. I'm just like, what type of person do you have to be to clash about this? There's such a blatant line. It's not a thin line. It's a very thick line of right and wrong. If you were shot to death in your sleep, that is wrong. I don't care what you did. You never even had a chance at your next day. That's wrong. I don't care if you was a full-time convicted felon. I don't care if you robbed the bank the same day. The point of you being paid to be a police officer is to arrest me so I can have my day in court. That's literally part of the Constitution. My right to a speedy trial, which we don't get those either, but that's neither here nor there because we have too many issues to fight for. So we're not even asking for that much. All we just saying is like, look, if I make a mistake, if I mess up, just don't shoot me. Tase me, beat me up, Rodney King, whatever. Throw me in the car, break my wrist with the handcuffs. Just do not murder me. That's all we're asking for, and we can't even get that. That's why I get so frustrated personally, and I try to have these friendly so-called debates with my friends, but they never end up friendly because I don't think this is a debate topic. This is a one-way street, and if you're going the wrong way down this street, there's going to be a very bad collision. Like, I just don't think that there's much room for two opinions on shit like this. It doesn't make sense to me. And that's what just lets me know that people who call for reform, people who call for amending, fixing the problem, America in our current state is not amicable. We cannot fix this. You don't undo this type of shit with reform. I was on the phone with my partner Chris right before I decided to do this episode. Like, I literally said, this is on a whim. And the way I broke it down to him is like, you don't shatter something and then reform it. You can't reform that. You don't shatter a plate and then try to serve food on it. And that's exactly what they've done to Black people. They've taken our community, let's say our community was fine china at first, untouched. They took it and shattered it and then said, this is what you eat on. As long as you live here, you eat on this shattered plate. That's what reform is. Try to reform, try to take together a shattered plate and eat your food. Every meal you eat for the rest of your life is going to suck. because I don't care how well you can cook, and that's literally how it feels to be a black person. Our culture is used everywhere. We built the country, and all of our meals here suck. We built this. We built the colleges that your kids go to. We built all the institutions that were originally existing that turned into these Fortune 500s, these Fortune 100s. We built it all. It was all on our backs, and we don't get to enjoy any of it. All of our food, we're chewing 5-star meals with broken glass in it. And then they tell you, but you're eating a 5-star meal. Yeah, it has broken glass in it. I can't enjoy this. You've effectively ruined every good thing that it is that we have to go into because I'm black. That's the only reason. There's nothing different between what it is that I'm doing and what it is that you're doing. The only difference is that I'm doing it while I'm black. Crime is about proximity. There's no such thing as black on black crime. Crime is committed at equal rates per capita. Everyone loves to say more white people are shot than black people. Okay, do you know the population of America? There's 326 million people in America. Black people are anywhere from 13 to 15% of that. How are we even somewhat close to them numbers? That's ridiculous. Don't talk about black on black crime. People kill people. Asian people kill Asians. Hispanics kill Hispanics. White people kill white people. But when those communities start crossing, that's where the problem comes. Why is there police officers who are white and black, but they're killing black people in other communities that they are not from? Now you've broken the rule of proximity when it comes to crime. You're killing people that you would have never on an everyday basis would have crossed paths with. That is a systemic problem. You should not even be in my proximity to commit that crime against me. And that's all the police force is. They're putting people in our proximity to manufacture more crime. I don't understand how more people don't see this. And the ultimate problem here is that it's legal. And we can't fight that. There's nothing we can do to fight that. Slavery was legal. Jim Crow was legal. All they've done was reinvent the wheel right in front of our face 100 times. Every few years they tweak a law, they change something. Times change. Everything changes. No one could have seen any of this coming. But the people who are the rule makers will never be the rule breakers because they just can keep making other rules. It literally goes all the way deep into politics. If you go watch Roger Stone, if you're not familiar with who Roger Stone is, then you don't understand politics at all. You don't understand how the world works. Roger Stone himself has railroaded at least 5 elections. Local, national. He's the reason Donald Trump is the president. He had Donald Trump on a presidential ticket, I want to say 1990 something, as a third Libertarian Party that completely ruined the Democratic versus Republican election. And that's the reason you don't even see 3 parties on the ticket anymore. There used to be 3 parties. Y'all can look this up. There used to be 3 parties on every single ticket back before my generation was even alive, probably. And now we're voting for either Donald Trump or Joe Biden. There's a reason for all of this. Roger Stone has said in his documentary, everything I do is perfectly legal. And if you know who Roger Stone is, you know that he's probably the scum of the earth. I wouldn't spit on Roger Stone if he was on fire because I'm a winner. He's everything that is wrong with our society. He wins at whatever it costs. He will do whatever it takes. And if that means writing a rule for him to win that will fuck over millions of people, he will write the rule. It's where lobbying comes from. It's how they make all these rules on Wall Street, in DC. They are writing their own rule book as they're going. And the little guys at the bottom, which applies to white people too. I don't want people to think that I'm just talking only to black people. They've convinced you that you are better than black people just because you're white. You are on the bottom as well. And it hurts you, but the sense of entitlement that most white people have just because they're white, that's also holding us back. And if you want to talk about people getting shot in their sleep, we can talk about Fred Hampton, who was murdered blatantly in his sleep at 21 years old, but he was doing the same thing. He was uniting everybody, saying there's no reason for white people to hate black people, to hate Mexicans in our community, because we're all getting the short end of the stick. There's a rich white man on the other side of town who's laughing at us while we fighting each other. And that's literally what America is. If you just look at any community, look at your hood. I don't even know where everybody could possibly be from, but look at your community. I guarantee you will see that exact same structure. Every hood has that one little white boy that, or, you know, if it's a trailer park up the street, they think their trailer park is better than your project because it's a trailer park with their Confederate flags. That is mind-blowing to me. You are equally as poor as me. You have just as much of the lack of resources as me. You have everything else, but you think that your skin tone has you on a platform, kind of. Which it does, but the problem is that you're willing to ignore your own problems just because you're white. And I saw they were talking about Beirut and the explosion that they had, and it was a New York Times article, and they used the words incompetent loyalists. And I have never heard a better phrase in my life, because it describes American politics. It describes the people who just blindly follow Trump. It describes everything. Like, if you're willing to go against your own best interest, you are an incompetent loyalist. You're not competent enough to assess your own situation, let alone someone else's. But you're so gung-ho about what it is that you believe in that you're willing to do that. The people who fly the Confederate flag in Arizona makes no sense to me. Why? It's not about your history. You're from Arizona. Arizona was not one of the original colonies. Let it go. That's not your history. Just say that you wanted slaves. Just say that you're racist. That would make me feel so much better if you just said that you're racist. And it's hard to even keep a trail of thought here, because it's so much that I sit around and I just read and I study, and I just like to get to the bottom of things, because I feel like every problem has a solution. That's just how the world works. That's what they taught you. They teach you that in school, logic. They say that every action has a reaction, every problem has a solution, everything has a fix. But when you really, really, really study the culture that we built for Black people here, you see that there are no fixes for us that don't result in some form of radical change. Meaning, like, the violent protests, the riots, whatever it is you can think of, it's gonna have to take something that has not been done before, because everything's been done before. And Breonna Taylor was still murdered in her sleep. If you got a solution that I couldn't think of, or that I might just not be processing, please feel free to let me know through any type of platform. But when you really get down to the nitty-gritty of it, you cannot appeal to the sense of emotion of someone who does not see you as a human being. There is no emotion there. They may have sympathy for you, but they may never have empathy for you. They will never feel what it is that you felt, nor understand, nor care. Because if I do not view you as my equal, if I do not view you as a human being, I will never treat you as such. We step on bugs because we do not see them as a life that matters. So when you say Black Lives Matter, you are no more than a bug to them. That's why we're saying Black Lives Matter. We're trying to, which is ridiculous that you are trying to convince a human that your human life matters. But I look at it from the standpoint of like this. Hunting. Black people, I don't know very many Black people who hunt. It's just not a very common activity. Guns, rifles are not promoted in a Black home. At least I've lived in a bunch of different cities, but I've never seen little Black boys and girls running around with guns. But then you look on the other side and you look at, the people who go fishing and blah, 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 and enjoy wildlife, and they have those weekend outings and they hunt with their family from a very, very young age. That is a problem, because on top of everything in this world is social conditioning. So on top of the conditioning that exists on television and how they portray Black people, if you don't live around Black people on your day-to-day basis, if you live in a suburb and go to a 98% white Catholic school or private school, you play church ball with your white friends, when are you encountering black people on a personal level? You're not. So you're going to see them on TV. You're going to see them on TikTok. You're going to see them on Twitter. That's not the accurate representation of black people. So you see us as a thing, something to be, something that exists in your world, but not necessarily as a human. It's a thing to you. So when you're taking these young children, very, very young, I don't know what age people start hunting at, but when you go hunting at a young age, you're teaching a child to shoot an animal with no remorse for its life. That animal's life did not matter to you because you shot it, skinned it, ate it, hung it up on your wall. Whatever you did with it, it's a sport to you. It's a leisure. You did it for fun because you could. So naturally, I'm not saying that this is what they're going around teaching, but naturally, your mind is going to equate anything that you don't hang around deers on a daily basis. You don't hang around cows on a daily basis. That's why we eat meat. You don't empathize with cows. Animals like that. So if you're looking at wild animals the same way you're looking at black people, all you see black people on TV is Law and Order, CSI, the rapist, the guy who's in handcuffs, the bad guy. It's just what always has been on television. That's how you see us. That's how you treat us. And it's not an intentional thing, but it's inherent. You learn that. You learn it over so long a time period that you don't even know you learned it. And then when somebody calls you racist, you're like, no, I'm not. I'm not racist. I've never had a racist thought. But you don't even realize that it's so deep inside of you. It runs in everybody. Everybody has internal things because all behaviors are learned. And the people who control the images we see do it on purpose. If they wanted us to be a peaceful society, we would have been one. They would have showed us that shit a very long time ago. Everybody would have been holding hands with flower wreaths on our head, singing Kumbaya. That's not what happened. And over time, it just evolves and evolves, and it gets so much worse to the point where black people are indulging in it as well. Black violence is probably the number one marketing, media, I would call it a market. I think black violence is probably the best market to sell anything in. Music, movies, television, magazines, anything you run, black violence is going to get you hits. If I make a song on the coldest beat about shooting somebody, I've seen it a million times. Everybody does it. How many slave movies have we seen? Jesus Christ. Like, all of it is about black violence because that's what we know. That's what we consume. And it's so inherent that black people do it too. And that only divided us more because you in turn, how are you going to have a power struggle within a power struggle? So that's where we get our colorism from. Because, okay, if we're all stuck at the bottom, there has to be a top and bottom of the bottom. So the only thing you've ever known to be powerful is a white person. So the only thing you will ever know at the bottom to be powerful is a light person. That's literally just social conditioning. No one may agree with that, but it's just how your brain is going to break it down. It's natural. You learned it. It's not that someone taught it to you, but no one taught you how to walk. You saw people doing it and you did it. That's just how it is. The only things we know how to do naturally is eat, cry, and shit. That's literally it. Everything else is learned. And it just doesn't make sense. And black violence has gone so far. You could even take it all the way back to slavery and Jim Crow. I was watching a TV show with my sister not too long ago, and she was telling me, or I had told her, I don't remember what it was, but I said that, wow, it really makes sense now. Someone killed somebody else, and we was like, dang, he really didn't have to do that. But then it was literally just a movie. It was a great movie, but in my mind, I just thought, we're so conditioned when dealing with black people that violence is the only answer. Because that's just all we've ever been taught. Back in the olden days, when a black person stepped out of line, you murdered them. That was the punishment. Or if you didn't murder them, you beat them close to it, and you whipped them till their bones is showing. I don't know if people really learned the details of slavery, but it was very gruesome. It wasn't just you know, the boat here picked some cotton for a couple hundred years and then it was over with. It was so awful, and the gravity of it is uncomfortable to even talk about. But you have to think, that's all we've ever known. So the very first society of free people, the Freemans, that's literally where the last name Freeman comes from. The very first society of free people, where did they learn how to be a society? You see what I'm saying? It comes from what you've seen before. That's all it is. So if every time a black person spoke out of turn when we was in the fields, when I'm now trying to lead a community and a black person speaks out of turn, what are you gonna do? And it may not be to the same degree, but you're going to lash out in the same sense of that learned behavior, because as you literally don't know anything different. That's the same reason why black men treat our black women the way that we do. Where did you learn it from? Who was your model? Where did you get your behaviors from? Going all the way back to the first group of black men that had the opportunity to be that difference. To a degree, you can't blame them, because if they've never seen anything different, they cannot do anything different. That's the whole problem. It goes all the way back to what I was saying in the very beginning about how white people treat us and view us, is that they just have not seen anything different. And that's where the problem is now, is that in the technology era, you have seen different, and you're hearing us tell you that this is wrong. But in my opinion, I think we're too far gone. I don't think that we can fix this. And it looks good, and I'm not trying to be hopeless. I do believe that we will get some type of change. I just don't believe that our generation, I don't believe that you and me watching this video will be alive to see the change that we want. We're gonna get change for sure, but it's not gonna be the radical change we need unless we do some crazy shit, because you just can't undo this. It's not something that it happens. And we're never going to have equality unless you could start over. Unless we could take this world, this society that we live in, and start completely over, we won't have that. And fighting for equity in a world where equality is a stretch is even more of a stretch, because not only are you asking them, why would anybody treat you the same with resources when they don't even think you are the same type of person as them? That is ridiculous. You wouldn't go give $1,000 to an animal in the forest because they don't need it. That's literally how you look at it. So when the people was drawing them red lines on the maps telling black people to live here and other people to live there, I'm sure someone in the room was like, well, what about them over there? And I'm guaranteeing you someone in the room said they don't need it. Either that or we just don't care. And your logic behind it doesn't really matter to me, because either way you fucked over a very big amount of people. And the only way to change that is to get everybody who disagrees with that thought to change it. And we can't educate everybody one by one. They're obviously not listening when you try to do it on a mass platform. And black people don't have leaders to do such. We don't have Martin Luther King anymore because he was murdered. We don't have Malcolm X anymore because he was murdered. We don't have James Baldwin. He passed away. We don't have Medgar Evers. He was murdered. Angela Davis, she's already on thin ice. She can't go out and do what she's supposed to do. We don't have Asada. We don't have all these people. They've all been railroaded or murdered. It's just, what do you want us to do? We don't have LeBron James, Beyonce, Jay-Z. What are we supposed to do? If when we do get a leader, they're going to murder them. It's just what happens. You can call it pessimistic, you can call it hopelessness, but I'm just going off the history. If you do something 9 times, who am I to tell you that you're not going to do it the 10th time? I can name you more leaders that have been murdered than not. And it's just so ridiculous. Like I said, Fred Hampton was murdered in his sleep, laying next to his girlfriend or fiance at the time. He was 21 years old. That is absurd. he never even got a chance to see his life begin to come into fruition, because once you're deemed a threat, you will be eliminated. It's just what America does. And they're so good at propaganda. Back then, in the 60s, they could have convinced every black person that Fred Hampton was a problem for them. Probably. You didn't have an iPhone to fact check it on your own. All you had was the radio, maybe a news station if you were fortunate enough to have a television, and the newspaper. So whatever they tell you is what you know. You learned your thoughts from someone else. And that's why I think today's behavior is unacceptable. Because every single person, especially if you're capable of listening to this, what I'm saying right now, or watching what I'm saying, you have the entire history of the world in your hands right now. That's what is mind-blowing to me. And not to just say that everybody should know everything, but there's no excuse not to at least be knowledgeable about your own best interests. There's no reason for you just to ignore it because it don't apply to you. It just hasn't applied to you yet. You haven't been a victim of police brutality yet. I'm sure Breonna Taylor never would have guessed in a million years she would get murdered in her sleep. No one does. That's just not what you think about, because we're living our lives, but they don't think of us that way. No one once stopped to think, maybe there's a person in there asleep, we shouldn't go in there and shoot at them. No one thought that because they didn't think of you as the same way that they sleep in their beds at night. That is the problem. And I know I'm just going on and on. I don't have the solutions either. And I think we won't even begin to have these fixes, that whatever the fixes may be, we won't even begin to be able to talk about them, because the protests are beautiful. I love seeing the raw power that we have, but until we can take that power and channel it and put it somewhere, we're really not doing much of nothing. And I don't mean to discredit anything. I only say that because the protests and everything, they do spark change, but they spark such a small change, and it's not formal. So when we're putting the ball back in their court, we're saying we're angry, and there's not a deadline on it. We're not saying we're going to march for X amount of days until something happens, and then this happens. They like, all right, we got the budget to let the police come out here and monitor these marches and gas the people when we tired of looking at them. Because what they gonna do? March some more? What they gonna do? Are they gonna tear up our stuff? We're gonna shoot them. What they gonna do? And nothing's formal. Or if you say, all right, we want this, and there's petitions. When you put the ball in their court, who's holding them accountable? You know, we arrest the cops. No one, not one person, and no one's responsible for this, but I'm saying that's the problem. No one's responsible for this. No one said arrest the cops by this date in a formal manner. And who could that person be? Your guess is as good as mine. But it needs to be a person. And I don't think the big time celebrities of the world can be those people, because I think LeBron and Beyonce and Jay-Z are beautiful images for our community of how to succeed and be such elegant figures and help so many people. But I don't think they should be the spokespeople for us. We shouldn't look to LeBron James. And I've seen it happen so many times that when something happens, everybody's looking to LeBron. Well, what's LeBron gonna say? LeBron's a basketball player. You know, yes, he's on that platform and he uses it very, very well, but he's not a politician. And I think that's been made explicitly clear by continuing the playing of the playoffs, that there are certain things that do have a limit for these celebrities, because at the end of the day, their check is gonna always come first, because that check is what made them LeBron or Beyonce or Jay-Z. Yeah, they're rich as hell now. They don't need it as much as you think, but every check that got them there was signed by a white person. All of them. Every single one. Adam Silver pays LeBron. You know, or these Nike deals pay LeBron, or whoever pays LeBron. Beyonce got all her publishing. Disney did Black is King. Beyonce didn't own the forum that she put that out through. She inked the deal with somebody. There's someone else's name on that paper. And it's that money's not the end all be all, but money is such a huge factor that the purity of your movement is tainted. Because now you've given somebody else that wiggle room to say, shut up and dribble, or you're just the artist, or you're just a blah, blah, blah. We don't have a MLK who's dedicated solely to us, to helping us. We don't have a Malcolm X who's dedicated solely to helping us, like, would die for this. Like, no one would do that. Because if that was the case, Beyonce, I just said this the other day, Beyonce would have said, when all this stuff started to come out, and I'm not trying to put this all on them, this is my thoughts. In my mind, Beyonce would have said, you will never hear my voice again until we get change. And a lot of people would be like, well, what's that gonna do? Like, that don't make no difference. But going back to them checks, them white people's names on them checks, Beyonce's a billionaire. So Beyonce can only get paid by a billionaire, someone more wealthy than her, or a conglomerate more wealthy than her. So when you sit down and you think about it, if you understand the Roger Stones and lobbyists of the world, or who writes the rules for our world, you understand that lobbying is what writes these rules. So when you cut, let's just say Disney for argument's sake, when you cut Disney out and say, we had a contract for X amount of whatever type of work that Beyonce and Disney would do, and you say, I'm not honoring that until you fight unequivocally for what it is that I'm asking for, you're gonna miss out on so much money on my name because you need me. They're going to go lobby. That's what they do. If LeBron James and the rest of the NBA, I think they had such a golden opportunity and blew it. Oh, they blew it. Because in the first day, it was a Friday, I think, when the Bucks said, we're not playing because the protesting Kenosha. That was an 8-hour block on TNT with they had to play the longest yard. I know they did not want to do that. Everyone wanted to watch the Greek Freak play Toronto or whoever they was playing. I don't even remember what it was, but you cost them 8 hours of television time. Now, when you really sit down and think about it, you got to think deeper than just the basketball. You have to think the money behind the advertising. Them people don't care about basketball. They care about who's watching basketball. The same thing with social media. Every influencer and everybody said, I'm not doing, the world will stop without Black people. I want everyone to really grasp that without Black people, the culture that makes everything go would come to a screeching halt. Without Black people, none of this shit keeps going. And it sounds crazy to say that, but if you really dig to the bottom of everything, it's true. You try to play an NBA game with no Black people, you'll be playing 2-on-2 with Gordon Hayward and Daniel Tice, or William Tice, whatever his name is, versus Marc Gasol. I don't even think the Raptors have another white player. You see what I'm saying? Try to play an NFL game without Black people. It's going to be a center, a quarterback, and a tackle, and a guard, and a head coach. Try to have a music industry without Black people. Congratulations, you're listening to Billy Ray Cyrus 40 times a day. Try to do anything. Let's go on television. Producers, all the people, the writers, these movies, and maybe if it's not just the Black people who are doing the work, try to do it without the ideas that inspired the work. You know, because I'm sure a Black person put something on Twitter and a white person went and wrote it and got a big contract. It happens. It's what happens in the world. Art inspires art. But imagine if you take away that baseline of art. And Black people are art. You have nothing. You literally have nothing. The inventions, you have nothing without it. But we allow them, because we don't have a undisputed leader who's just strictly fighting for Black, whatever it is you want to call it, we allow them to just continue to milk us without paying their dues or respects at all. That's one thing. And then they double back and spit in our faces when they shoot us, and then there's no accountability for it. We can go down the list of how many police officers have gotten off. And to just take it back to Trayvon, I think it's so, that one, which really Trayvon is the one that set everything off on a national scale. And I think because it's been so long since Trayvon passed away that we kind of forget how awful that situation really was. Because Zimmerman wasn't even a police officer. There was no qualified immunity for Zimmerman. There was no police union. There was none of that. He literally got off because the person he murdered was black. Like, and stand your ground. It wasn't his ground to stand. And he still got off. Now, if that sparks a debate in your household, then that's the problem. There is no right or wrong there. There is right or wrong. There is no debate. It's what's right and what's wrong. Now, if you flip those, obviously, it comes out a different way. Then you want to go into the next, Darren Wilson, Mike Brown. Then you want to go into all the others, Eric Gardner, Alton Sterling. Now you're getting into the police line of it. But it's just so crazy that we became the villains while being the victims. And I don't really understand how that happened, but that just shows you that we have none of the power because it happened. And, it keeps happening and it's going to continue to happen, and we got to George Floyd, then we got to Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, all of them. Everyone thought after the last one there wouldn't be another one, and here we are. I thought that after Mike Brown, because I saw Trayvon, and watching Trayvon Martin's whole ordeal play out was probably the most disturbing thing I've ever seen in my life. And it's crazy that no one ever really gets to speak on it, because my age group, we were young when that happened. Not young, but you're still an adolescent. You don't know nothing. I'm 23 and I think I know a lot, and I know that I don't know nothing. So back then when that happened, it's just like, wow, like there's really nothing that's going to be done about this. And then Mike Brown comes around. I'm in college when Mike Brown dies, 2015 or 2014, whatever year it was. And I just remember being so heartbroken. Like, damn, again? Then shit turned up. I was living in Baton Rouge when Alton Sterling died. And, you think, again? I think that's 2015. How many agains have we said since 2015? And, what are we going to do? What do you do? When does it stop? Who knows? Because no one's putting them on a timeline. The same way the protests, how long are we going to protest? There is no timeline. The ball is in their court. You're literally just waiting on the person at the top of the pyramid to decide that they don't want to sit there anymore. And that's generally not how things work. When dynasties fall, they don't fall just because they felt like it. And you got to tip your hat to, I have to say white people, I don't want to loop or lump everybody in that category, but you got to tip your hat to white people because they built the perfect dynasty. Their dynasty has never fallen. Never once. From 1776, which is really before then, but 1776 was when all the paperwork was signed, to now, they have never once fallen. And it's kind of crazy because when they teach you history, they teach you, all the dynasties in ancient China, when they really used to rule shit like Zen dynasty, all that, Qin dynasty, whatever it is. When they teach you about the dynasties, you think, wow, like, Rome wasn't built in a day, but it fell in one. When does America fall? And not saying that the country itself has to shatter, but when does this dynasty of supremacy fall? what does that take to fall? Who's gonna pull that last little block? And I don't even think they're on their last block. I think we're looking at a full set of fucking a Jenga tower of supremacy. I think that's exactly what we're looking at. And I don't think we're on the one that makes them fall yet. Because we're letting them pull their own pieces out. That's what it feels like. You cannot ask someone who hurts you to just stop hurting you. It's just, if they wanted to, they wouldn't hurt you. But we keep getting hurt, so obviously they don't want to stop. And it's not that they want to just go out and shoot you, but they don't see anything different of, like, they don't see a problem with it. And then you think, well, all the people saying, well, if he didn't want to die, he wouldn't have broke the rules. Really? Like, I have white friends. You've heard that phrase in another way before. If my white friends were to be persecuted every time they broke a rule or a law, it would be very ugly. Very ugly. Because I don't know if y'all know this, but white people break rules too. Sorry to tell you that, but you know, it's the truth. A lot of white people break a lot of rules, and unfortunately, they're most of the time a lot worse than what we've done. School shootings, church shootings, those people don't die. Who's the little dude in Boston or wherever who shot a government employee in the head? He shot her in the head, and with the crazy hair, with the colored hair. He's still alive. Like, damn. It's so blatant of a discrepancy that it's like, damn, what you want me to say? And I'm sorry, I know I'm just ranting and rambling, but it's just like, what do you want us to do? And at some point, you have to be as tired as I am. Because when do you say enough is enough? And I'm not saying put it on the back of your NBA jersey, enough is enough, or wait till the white people decide enough is enough. When do we say enough is enough? Like, I get it. It's not as easy as it sounds. You know, everybody can't just up and quit their job. Everybody can't just be all like gung-ho, but if not now, then when? It's going to be 2050, and then it'll be 2100, and then it'll be the year 3000. If the earth even makes it there, but the way it's looking, they are in it for the long run, and it's running on us. We are the most important cogs in the machine, essentially. We're the number one spending demographic in America. Imagine if the blackout, we post about it, and it seems like everyone does it when you post, but that's because social media is literally tailored to make you feel like your social media circle is the world, and that's not even, I don't think, our brains don't really understand the concept of how many people are in the world, because it felt like everybody posted a black square for Blackout Tuesday, but then you have to go back and look at the numbers. I'm not sure if this number is right, but there was a stat that said 26 million people participated in some form of a Black Lives Matter protest in June, which was whether it was a blackout, square on their Instagram, a protest, a virtual protest, in some way, shape, or form. The number was a little under 30 million people, which is like, damn, son, we doing it. We fucking them up. We doing it, right? 30 million people, wow. 30 million people think my black life matters. But then it's like, all right, take one step back and think about the 300 million who think otherwise. Maybe not think otherwise, but are indifferent. This is not something to be indifferent about. That's all I'm trying to get at, is that if you do not stand up for your best interest, no one else will do it for you. Because the white people who are comfortable are not going to do it. One of my closest friends, I was going off on one of my little tangents one day, and he was like, well, good luck with the revolution. I was like, if it came to that, I would be most definitely in the street. Like if we were to do like France or do like Hong Kong, where literally was fighting in the street with their own government, I would be there. Because at the end of the day, what else do you have? You have nothing. The material shit around you is nothing without your life. And your life is not in your hands. Obviously, because it can be taken from you in your sleep, like Breonna Taylor, and then you will get no justice. That is the worst part. So what are you fighting for? What are you living for every day? Because you're gonna die for nothing at some point if they choose it's your day. You're a sitting duck until there's real repercussions or real addressing of the issues going on. And there's been neither. There's been nothing. These white people who support the police, Darren Wilson had I think they donated more money to Darren Wilson than, I don't necessarily know how much it was, but he had a very, very big GoFundMe. And the support on his Facebook groups and all that was ridiculous. But shooting somebody, he wasn't fighting for a cause. He wasn't standing up for nothing. He literally shot a young man, and people was like, I stand with him. What for what? You see what I'm saying? They'll go out of their way to go against your life because we're not going out of our way for our life. And that's all I'm trying to get at. Is just like, when do we step up as somebody? If it could be me, I would love it to be me. If I could be the one to lead us to whatever. But, until we have somebody who's able to do that on the accurate type of platform or arena, then nothing's going to change. Because what it is that's happening to us in the name of Breonna Taylor is perfectly legal. They have police unions that are designed for these type of situations. If someone was to die protesting tonight in Louisville, there are police unions designed to handle that situation. They're designed to shoot people and make it go away. The IA, Internal Affairs, you cannot ask me to interrogate me when I did something wrong. What sense does that make? Let's play a sports game and let the head coach call his own penalties. The Saints would win every Super Bowl. You see, I'm like, does that make sense? You cannot have that in this world, because then you're gonna have 20 more Breonna Taylors. You're gonna have 20 more Mike Browns. You're gonna have 20 more Tamir Rices. They just don't see us the same. Obviously, I never am wrong. If you let me decide what's right and wrong, I would never be wrong. I would be right all the time, just because it's what I feel like being. I would love to be right all the time. Everybody would. So that's essentially the power that we've given to the politicians and the police. We've given them the power to be right all the time. Even when they're so blatantly wrong, who are we to tell them anything? Because they're the ones with the badge and the gun. And even if you have your own gun in a legal state and with legal paperwork, Philando Castile, you're still going to be murdered because they are writing the rules. So, I would love to figure out one day. And it's a group thing, and it takes time. And until AOC becomes president, we're not going to see much change. Or unless Joe Biden really comes out and shows me something that I had no clue was coming. We're in it for the long haul. And I'm happy to see all the protests and stuff going on, because it's showing me that more people are starting to care. But I think more people need to get informed so we know what it is that we're caring about. Having BLM in your bio is not enough, because anybody on any given day should be able to ask you, well, what is it that needs to change? And you should be able to run off a list of things: in qualified immunity, in redlining, reparations need to come, all type of things. There should be a number of things that we should be able to talk about. Resources in schools, let's change the textbooks, all type of stuff. Like, there's a whole lot that needs to go on. Reallocating the wealth of America. Now that is a long, long shot. But somebody needs to take it one day, because we got a couple thousand billionaires controlling a few trillion of our wealth, and black people, there's only 5 black billionaires, I think, like equitable billionaires or something like that. And Mr. Smith, the one who donates to Clark and wipes out their student loans, if you look him up, his billionaire resource of his money says private equity, which is like real estate investing and stuff like that. But it's like, he's such an anomaly. And I'm sure there's more than 5 black billionaires. I'm just like throwing out a small number, but the black billionaires that we have are such big anomalies that you can't use them really as a statistic. They're outliers. Yes, there are black billionaires, but for every 1 black billionaire, there's going to be another million black people living in poverty. That's not equity. That's not worth it. I would rather have no black billionaires if I could have, 500,000 of that 1 million living in poverty, living at a healthy 6-figure range. I would trade all the billionaires in the world for that, because you don't need $1 billion. No one does. But we'll get to that when we talk about capitalism. But capitalism is ruining the black community, and ironically, the black community are some of the most capitalistic people, because we think that we're going to be the one to be the next billionaire. I don't know if you need someone to tell you this, but you are not going to be the next Jeff Bezos. I just want you to know that. It shouldn't be an inspiration to you, because you have so many cards stacked against you. If you're alive right now and you are not already on the path to being Jeff Bezos, you will not be Jeff Bezos. You will not even be Kanye West, because he is such an anomaly. And when you think about people who are worth $1 billion, they don't have $1 billion. They're worth it. Being worth that $1 billion in division to the 3.5 trillion that the 400 something people in America control, I want y'all to do that. Divide 1 billion by 3.5 trillion and just kind of like wait until you see the amount of zeros that come up in that decimal. And that'll teach you something. Because $1 billion, wow. There's 400 people, a little over 400 people who control 3.5 trillion of America's wealth. That is such a huge discrepancy, and I'm guaranteeing you, if there is a black person, I guarantee there's not double digits in that 400 that are controlling that much money. And there's a lot of black people in the world, so there's a problem here. 25% of that 400 something is Jewish. And the Holocaust was less than 100 years ago. So there's a big problem in our country where that didn't happen in our country, but we didn't go to someone else's country and become hoarders of wealth or just extremely wealthy. Obviously, you know it as well as I do, there's things that are holding certain people back from doing certain things. So eventually it needs to change, but it won't start until we all use the world that's in our fingertips every day to just learn something else. Read something else. Don't look at the next rapper baby mama. Read something that was about something relevant that's going to help you figure out what's going on in the world. There's so much more of a purpose to your life and our lives than to just be wasted immersing ourselves in the pop culture that's going to be taken from you anyway. That's just the way that I see it. It's not even ours anymore. We got everybody taking everything from us. They take everything. When do we take it back? That's all I want to know. But I don't have nothing else. Thank y'all for tuning in. I'm going to keep coming with more stuff. Today was just an impromptu, emotional rant because I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt for Breonna Taylor and her family and all the other victims of the police brutality in the world. So my dream is one day we can make a change. And I think we will eventually, but we'll keep going. But I'll have more content coming for you guys soon. Make sure you subscribe on Instagram. On YouTube. Follow the Instagram page at The Bad Guy Podcast. Everything will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I'm gonna catch y'all later.
Walking with the drip, like I got with 'em. Pictures of